Alright guys, let's create this advice generator, which is a front-end mentor challenge. And as you can see, I've already started this challenge and I have downloaded all the assets which are required. So let's head back to our VS Code and start creating it. As you can see, I've already created an React app using Vite and imported all the images required for this project along with some colors which we are going to use in this project. And I have mentioned some of the container properties which are not required but I have mentioned anyways, so we are going to use it. Alright, now let's go back to our app.jsx. It is our app.jsx file. Now let's do one thing. Now if we go back to our design, as you can see, the background color is this dark grayish color. So as our project is a single page project, what we can do is come back to our VS Code and in my index.css file, I can simply say our body will have a background color of this one, this dark blue color. So copy it from here and paste it and remove this inverted commas. Alright, save it, and if I go back, as you can see, our background color has changed. Alright, now let's create this box which will hold our advice. So go back to our app.jsx and in the parent div I can give a class name and say with full, I can say container with full height, let's say screen. The display property will be flex, justify, center, items. Now within this div I can create another div and let's give a class name and let's give a width of around 500 pixel and a height of around 400 pixel. Now if I do this, give a BG color of let's say grayish blue and save it, and I go back, as you can see our box has been created. Now let's make it similar looking. So to do that I can give a rounded LG. Alright, it's now this is not the color, so dark, I think this is the color. Alright, now as you can see it's similar color. Now let's reduce the height a little bit, let's say 200 is less, 300. Alright, now what we can do is let's give a padding of let's say 5. Alright, now we have, under this div we have to create the advice and the advice ID and that button. So this advice is created from an API called apiadviceslip.com/advice. Now to fetch it, you can use JavaScript fetch method or use Axios library to fetch it. Now I am going to use Axios because its syntax is somewhat less cluttered and it's simple. So I'm going to use Axios. I've already installed Axios in this React app, so I will simply import it. So import Axios from Axios. Alright, now let's fetch it. So what we can do is we have to create some states. So let's say our state is data and set data. Alright, now this is a setup function, as you know. Now this will be use state. Now let's initialize it with null and create an error handling state. So error and set error. Now use state and set this also to null. Alright, now what we can do is create an handle function. So const handle fetch. Alright, now I'm going to use arrow function. You can use any method. So within this, what I can do is create axios.get and copy the URL and paste it here. Then write .then within this I can write res, which is our response, and say it that console log let's first console log our data, what we are getting, log data. Alright. Now what we can do is, for testing purposes, I can simply create a button and simply say click here for advice. Alright. Now let's give a on click event on this button. So on click, it will call the handle fetch function. Alright. Now if I go back, here is our button. So let me open my inspect tab, and if I go to console and if I click it, as you can see, an object is coming within which our slip is there, and it is providing some advice along with the advice ID. Alright, now we have to fetch it. Now what we can do is, we can write set data, store all of our data to this set res.data. Alright. Now you have to also say set error null, because if data is there, then the error will not work, and if at all error occurs, then the data will not show. So the concept is like that. Then you can write dot catch, and we can simply say set error and write our comments. Let's say error while fetching data. Alright, now save it. Now what we can do is, as we have collected all our data in set data, now let's create that advice. Let me comment down this button. We can create a div and say if data is available, then in this paragraph tag, show me data.sleep.advice. Otherwise, show me error. Alright. Now if I uncomment it and go back to my output, now if I click this, as you can see, we can see our advice here. Now what we have to do is, we have to decorate it as our output. So let's do that. So to do that, I can simply say this paragraph tag will have a class name, and let's say it will have a font medium, and the text will be light cyan. Now if I go back, as you can see, it's visible. Let's make this text Excel. Now it will look a little bit bigger. Now let's do one thing. Now let's say text center. Alright. Now let me increase the padding as well, padding 10. And let's do one thing. This div, which has the padding of 10, will have a flex property. Let's say flex and flex column. Justify between. As you can see, there is a spacing between our advice and the button. Alright. Now let's do one thing. Let's bring our advice ID. So to do that, we cannot create another p tag here, as in React we can only return one parent div or parent component. So to do that, I can simply cut this and create an empty fragment. What this will do is, it will not introduce any other CSS property, as it is an empty fragment, and within this paste the earlier p tag, and above that I can create another p tag and say our advice ID is data.slip.id. Now if I save this, let's do one thing. Let's give a class name here, and let's say the text is neon green, font let's say semi bold, text SM. If I save this and go back, as you can see, our advice ID is visible. Now if I click over it, our advice changes as well as our ID changes. Alright, now let's do one thing. Let's bring this to center. Let's say text center. Now as you can see, our advice ID is at center. Let's give a margin bottom of, let's say 5. Now what we can do is, we can also write also give a hashtag so it's visually appealing. All right, now let's create this icon. So to do that, under this div where I'm fetching all my data, I can create another div. All right, and first of all I have to import all the images here. So I have imported all the images. Now I have to conditionally render these two images. So what I have done is, let's create another state. Let's give the name as screen size and set screen size. Now this will be a use state. So use state window dot inner width. Alright. Now what I can do is I can create an use effect hook to handle this. So use effect will have a function inside. So function, let's say const handle screen. I'm using arrow function, so within this I can write set screen size to window dot inner width. Now after this what I can do is I can add a window dot add event listener and set it to, let's say, window resize, so handle screen, and we have to also remove this whenever our requirement is fulfilled. So what we can do is I can write return here window dot remove event listener window, let's give it a name as window resize again, and let's say handle screen. Alright, now I can come back here and say if my screen size is below 400 then show me mobile divider. So to do that, let's give src and mobile divider, or show me the desktop divider. So give your src and again replace this with curly braces and write here desktop divider. If I save this and go back, as you can see our divider is visible as well as our advice along with the advice ID. Now if I decrease this, as you can see the image has changed. Alright, now let's do one thing. Let's make this button. Within this button I can type an image and I can also import this image from my public folders. Now copy this icon, come back here and replace this inverted commas with curly braces and simply write icon. Now if I go back, as you can see our icon is visible. Now we have to center this around here, so let's do that. In this button element I can give a class name here. Let's give padding 5, bg will be neon green, with fit. As you can see our button is created. Now let's do one thing, make it rounded full. Now this will make it circular. Now we also have to make this center, so let's do one thing. Let's give a position of absolute and make our main div, that is our box, the div where we have created the box, make it as relative. Now what this will do is, now we can move the button with respect to this box. If I save this and go back, as you can see it's here. Let's give a top of around 64 will be fine. Now I have already tested it earlier, so I know this. Alright, now let's give a left of around 56. Now what we can do is we can change this flex, we can change this justify between to evenly. Now let's try this. Alright, now as you can see there is a gap between the advice as well as this icon and the button. Alright, Now I have changed the left to 52 as it was not centering. So let's try it again. Now this button already has an on click event. So if I click this, as you can see, the advice changes along with the advice ID. Now if I resize it to mobile, in mobile it will look like this. Let's check it in tablet. So in tablet it will look like this. As you can see, we have completed our project. So if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and see you again in the next project. Till then, peace.